Hello and welcome to this special discussion on the wire about a book which came out recently, and the book is titled. I want to just show it to you. The book is titled "Unpolitically Correct," and it's about the politics and economics of governance. Uh, what is interesting about this book is that it has been written by a senior bureaucrat who retired some years ago, I think in 2016. Uh,
2017.
sorry, 2017. So, this book has been written by Satya Mohanty, who's the author, who's with us today. It was he retired in 2017, and after a long career spanning several decades, and more than that, more important than that, having worked across several sectors, policy making across several sectors in the government. Uh, he's from the he was from the Andhra Pradesh cadre, uh, and what is interesting about Satya Mohanty is I'll just give a brief introduction before we start this discussion. He has been described as a scholar administrator uh, because after entering the IAS, he did not stop pursuing knowledge. He did not stop his scholarly pursuits. He got a he did a public policy course from Harvard at the Kennedy School at Harvard, and he's a PhD in economics from the Hyderabad University. So he's always had a very special affinity with economics, macroeconomics, microeconomics, economic policy making. So that has been his passion, which runs through, and he also taught public policy abroad. So Satya, welcome to our show. So we are using your book,
Thank you, Venu.
Unpolitically Correct, and and all that you have said in the book, especially it's from what I can see in my quick reading of the book, what it tells me is that you have really diagnosed and dissected the Indian economy, especially over the last decade and more, and you have talked about decision making in the government, macroeconomic policy management, which impacts the economy, whether it is from the finance ministry or from the RBI, uh, and uh, and you've made some very sharp observations in the book. That is what makes this book interesting, because you do. There's one chapter which really interests me greatly, uh, which actually which is which has an appropriate title, and it is called "Understanding the Economic Mess." Now, all that we journalists, academics, other analysts, market analysts, who are closely observing the Indian economy for the last decade, particularly, uh, have been trying to understand the economic mess and analyze this economic mess. Different people from different perspectives. Market analysts, investors from their perspective, journalists from their perspective, academics from their perspective. You as a bureaucrat and academic from your perspective, and you've now put it down in a book form. So the politics and economics of governance, unpolitically correct. I am again putting before our audience the title of the book. So Satya, to begin with, tell me what prompted you to write this book. You've been a bureaucrat. You've been privy to a lot of policy making, decision making within the bureaucracy. You must have seen things from very close quarters. You must have seen things go wrong, go right, and then you come out of the bureaucracy, and and then you put a critical lens to policy making, to macroeconomic management, and you come out with this book. So please tell us what prompted you to write this book.
Um, First thing is the retirement came,
Yeah,
and with retirement came a little bit of free time and freedom,
yeah,
both. And
okay.
so many suggestions came to me that write a memoir, which
Hmm.
normally after retirement many people write. My reaction to that was in a lighter vein. What D.H. Lawrence said when he was ill in the hospital, someone brought him some fruits
Yeah.
and some flowers, and he said, "I'm too late for fruits and too early for flowers." So I thought that I am too early for memoirs.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
and
Okay.
but in another this thing, I thought, why write a memoir
Hmm.
on a tired theme? Once by living it, and secondly by writing about it.
Yeah.
And so I was pondering in my mind what to do, etc. And then the COVID intervened,
Yeah.
and the COVID-related isolation allowed me to think deeper, to access data and make sense out of many things on which I had some reservations, etc. And that is
Yeah.
how it got started. And I was writing mostly uh, from the angle of what the policies have resulted in and
Hmm.
what they have meant, rather than going back to the backroom details,
Okay.
how
Yeah.
something. But so naturally, I am doing that way a very secular job of looking at the symptoms and trying to decode them.
Okay. Okay. So I get your point. What you're saying is that you don't want to, in a memoir, typically uh, you would try to bring out details of what happened in meetings and who said what, and in some ways that also leads to a blame game. So you don't want to indulge in that, whether
No, more
because
importantly, what happens in hindsight when you write something, your mind does the hedonic editing.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Mhm.
And something which might not have happened in a particular manner, you suddenly start seeing it in that manner. So
Okay, yeah,
I was a little wary of that.
yeah, yeah. And I know what you're saying. Memory could, human memory, as they say, can be selective.
Yes.
In the unconscious, it can be selective. So
Yeah.
so you
Correct.
probably have no control over it.
Yes.
So in a sense, you decided to uh, do a kind of an overall uh, critique of policy rather than going into
Yeah.
what
That's
exactly
right.
happened when in the course of decision making. Okay,
Yes.
so
Yeah.
uh, so tell me, Satya, this book in a sense is an indictment of the macroeconomic management as well as mistakes made in critical sectors such as education and health. And you, of course, you retired as Secretary Higher Education, so probably so you understand education much more than many people. So uh, and critical sectors which are foundational for a modern economy. Now, as an insider, uh, generally, were you aware? Uh, when you were in the government, you were there till 2017. Were you aware that these mistakes were being made, or did you realize it by hindsight that
Uh,
some of these mistakes occurred to you subsequent to the implementation and how events panned out in the economy?
uh, yes. On some issues, people people are aware. On some issues, they're aware, but no data was available. Evidence was not incomplete,
Okay,
and sometimes there is a reluctance to take the bull by the horns.
okay,
Okay, all three things happen. But it is also true that on many occasions you really don't know. In a benign neglect, something goes on. Okay,
okay,
because the data is not there, and government is not a data-driven organization.
Yeah.
You do some, um, after 2 or 3 years, some evaluation. You don't have small sample surveys, you don't have action research, so you don't have anything to inform you on a ongoing basis.
Is it
So
just data driven now? Is it? You said government is not a particularly data driven organization.
government is also not
I've heard you say that the government is not necessarily a very learning driven organization. Also,
correct.
yeah.
Correct. Government is
Okay.
not a very learning driven organization, because I remember I was doing some research in the Sloan School when I was in MIT with a
Uh-huh.
professor. So he called me, and he basically wanted to check my credentials and all, because he had got reference, etc. So I told him that these are the things I've handled in the government. Uh, the professor said, he quietened my enthusiasm by telling, Satya, eventually government is not a learning organization.
Okay.
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 So these kind of things happen. To give an example, let's say insurance-driven healthcare.
Mhm.
Okay, anecdotally, you get to know that profit gouging by the private hospital takes place.
Yeah.
Okay, it takes place, but correctives are very difficult to bring in, because you
Yeah.
have traveled on the path to a certain extent. There are other interest groups. You will
Mhm.
have to take on them, etc., etc. So sometimes it is benign. Sometimes it is when you have got data also. If you don't do, it is a malign neglect. Okay,
Yeah.
and then let's say an education secretary gets to know that one of the problems is the education budget. Education
Mhm.
budget, 90% of the money goes away in the salary,
Yeah.
uh, salary, and nothing is left for the teaching aid and anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
But can he really do anything about it?
Mhm.
Because there are entrenched interest. He
Yeah.
can't take
Yeah.
on. He can't take on them. So the option is twofold. Either you freeze the salary, or you increase the budget. And governments always operate with budget constraints. So what eventually the casualty becomes teaching aid and other related matters which directly impacts learning. Okay,
Yeah.
so these
Mhm.
these these are kind of things which are.
But we also, Satya, in the latest budget, if I'm not mistaken, the uh, on the education budget, much less than what was budgeted got spent, isn't it? Uh, oh,
No, uh, what happens is that there are several ways of you can budget something, and you can choke
yeah,
the religious, and you can budget something on a particular program which is yet to take off. So
yeah,
these kind of things are there, but
yeah.
those are operational
Of course,
issues.
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah. Those are operational issues. Yeah, but generally in the last budget, uh, it has been seen that on health, education, rural development, employment related schemes, the budgeted amount is it's less than the much less than the previous years. So anyway, that quite apart from that, Satya, I want to come back to the crux of your the book that you've written. Uh, you have focused if there's something that runs through your book, some theme, one theme, which you are very worried about also, which we are all worried about, of course, is how the last decade, perhaps, and more, uh, has seen a very alarming increase in income inequalities, income and wealth inequalities, and you also suggest that there is a structural problem with unemployment, which is also a running theme in your book. Uh, can you just explain as to what what has happened in the last, say, 10 years, or even more than that, 15 years, especially in the last 10 years, that
you see the
we
you
are
see
seeing
many.
we are seeing such a such a structural kind of decline, or whatever, stagnation in employment. Yeah.
Okay, you see the point is, many things started much earlier. But what we saw during the last 10 years is the snowballing effect.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Okay, a snowball when it is rolling down the hill, it gathers mass as well as speed,
Yeah.
and unless it is stopped at the beginning, so it
Yeah.
gathers mass and speed. So same
Yeah.
thing we saw. The inequality, a part of it is snowballed, number
Mm-hmm.
one, and maybe partly because what used to happen in much smaller quantum earlier, it
Mm-hmm.
got done in much larger sweep. So
Yeah.
let's say, and it was not really helped by lack of discussion. Let's say one thing called privatization. Let's say
Yeah.
privatization,
Yeah.
the equity and the efficiency part of it, you will find it very difficult to really drill down, largely
Mm-hmm.
because it is all it is not thrown in the public domain. How
Correct.
someone got, whether he
Mm-hmm.
got it in a fair price or in a fire sale price, it is. So part of the problem is that, and part of the problem is many things got expanded substantially.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and the most important thing, the snowballing effect was there. Okay.
Snowballing, was the snowballing effect uh, accentuated uh, by, by 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 big policy errors in macroeconomic decision making? First, macroeconomic diagnosis, and then decision making, which you talk a lot about that in the budget, where you say that both the finance ministry and RBI, they persisted with the notion that the economy needed a supply side boost, and they kept some big budget decisions, and big outside of budget also big decisions, uh, largely focused on supply side. Even after the COVID recovery, when the
Mhm.
government thought that post COVID, that they could kind of start on a cleaner slate and come up with a lot of structural reforms, uh, were were also largely mostly supply side. And starting from 2019, big tax cuts, corporate tax cuts, which clearly resulted in the corporate balance sheets becoming better. But as the chief economic advisor himself admitted in his economic survey, did not lead to the same corporates hiring more or even paying higher wages. So we've seen a lot of supply side uh, solutions being thrown, but no pickup in growth, no pickup in employment, which leads you to say in your book, I find it very interesting. You talk about are we ready for depression economics? There's a very interesting page, section where you're talking about are we ready for depression economics, and you 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 quote the famous economist Nouriel Roubini, uh, who says that who defines depression economics or depression economics as a prolonged period of high unemployment, low output, low investment, depressed business confidence, uh, and business failures. So I want to talk about this because I'll tell you why. Recently, I heard a very leading industrialist, I can name him, Sajan Jindal, one of the largest steel makers in India, makes several other produces several other products, commodities also. He said that there's no dearth of capital, there's dearth of confidence. Now that's that comment of his, being a very important senior businessman, also close to Narendra Modi, when he said that there's dearth of confidence, and when I read it in your book, depressed business confidence. Can you talk about this? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, from the time of initiation of economic reforms in 1991, uh, the supply side problems were addressed a lot more vigorously compared to demand side. And demand side part of it probably was not looked at so closely. And of late, I find that it is declining further.
Yeah, yeah.
In the sense like eventually for people to produce, okay, that should be, more people should be getting into, uh, should be in a reasonably well-paying jobs
Yeah, yeah,
to
yeah.
consume those things.
Yeah.
And I think Rotin Roy puts it around 140 million around 2007 and 9, and that figure might have become 150 or 160 million. But for
So
a
basically, you're saying the consuming middle class has not expanded. Yeah.
that has not expanded.
Like it did in the case of China. Yeah.
Right, right. And COVID has given shocks to the people, and the very structure of the economy is turning into dualistic, even in the organized sector. Even in the organized sector, what is happening is that there are people who are taken in for a brief period of couple of years with a completely different terms of engagement. Okay,
Yeah.
and they go out. So that's so even the formal economy is creating a dual economy,
Yeah.
and this number of the expanding middle class or the transformative aspect of the economy, which is supposed to take place, is just not taking place.
Yeah.
And then, and then what has happened is that, like, the capacity utilization also remains fairly slack, in the sense,
Yeah.
if it is not 100% capacity utilization, why should new investment come in, etc.,
Yeah,
etc.?
Satya, you make a very important point here, and I must tell the audience here that probably we've not seen any other uh, period of 10 years where capacity utilization has stagnated in this on this with this intensity on this scale. Am I right? Because
Yeah.
within 10 years, some business cycle improves, but here we have not seen a
No, it
improvement
is
in
not the
business cycle.
cyclical. It is not the cyclical factor. You can't pin it down to cyclical factor alone. It
Oh,
is absolutely structural.
okay.
Absolutely structural. It is not so because of a cycle of 3 years, something will go down, something will then it will come up, etc.
So
Then
that
it's
yeah,
fine.
that's what I wanted you to clarify. This is not
Yeah,
cyclical. This is structural. Yeah.
yeah.
So 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 what do you think are the reasons for this structural mess that we are in?
Uh,
Is
well,
it lack of is it policy macroeconomic policy errors or is it something else?
no. You see, errors are perfectly fine. Anything that you make out of 10 things, 3 or 4 things will go haywire. They're
Yeah.
fine. The point is recognizing the errors and taking the correctives.
Okay.
Okay. But if there is no willingness to recognize the error,
Yeah.
if if you recognize the error but do not take correctives, because by that
Yeah.
time so many things have been entrenched, and why fix those things, etc., then you are in trouble. I think
Yeah.
many of the things is of this type. Okay, many of the problems are of this type. Even if it is recognized, they are not being fixed
Yeah.
as quickly as expected,
Yeah.
or many of the times it is not being recognized. And for recognition, you require data.
Yeah.
And if you are soft on data, and if you hate data, there is a problem. Okay.
Yeah. You said hate data. Okay. Okay. You mean yeah, I know what you mean. You mean
Yeah.
we've not had a 2021 census, uh, so a lot of a lot of welfare delivery is also currently getting hobbled by lack of data because 2011 census being used even for things like Ayushman Bharat healthcare identifying beneficiaries for the health insurance schemes, etc., etc. Even for food security, Jean Drèze has been talking about this. That we are still going by the 2000 by the old census to identify beneficiaries for the food security program, and Jean Drèze says that if you've done a census in 2021, uh, he says that at least 8-10 crore people more would have become eligible. Anyway, that's a separate debate. So
Actually, I read somewhere that the
uh,
insistence on KYC,
yeah,
which is absolutely fine in
mm,
the KYC verification, etc., absolutely fine, absolutely legitimate, has left out large number of people too. out of
Okay.
this food security and other things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're essentially saying that we are in a structural kind of
We unless
deceleration, which of course former chief economic advisor Arvind Subramaniam also recently wrote an article in Business Times where he did say that we are in a structural deceleration, economic deceleration, which is why do you think we are stuck at some 6 to 6.5% growth at the moment? Because the government had projected that after COVID recovery, India would go back to 7.5% plus growth rates, but that doesn't seem to be happening now.
I think this year it is much lot more moderated. No?
Yeah, much
This
more.
year,
Yeah.
yeah,
The last quarter was 5.4%, but you're right. But
uh,
even the annual projection has got moderated to
yeah, annual projection has been
six to six. Yeah, 6 to 6.5%. Yeah,
yeah, right.
yeah. So, so Satya, coming back to another issue, which is you mentioned that that in every regime, especially when regimes which have solid majority of their own, like Indira Gandhi, you said the political class, the ruling political class can become a victim of their own slogans. Like Indira Gandhi became a victim of Garibi Hatao. So you mentioned that this regime could become a victim of its slogan, Aatmanirbhar Bharat. Now, it's very clear that after 10 years of pushing for Aatmanirbhar manufacturing, for instance, with PLI schemes and a whole lot of other kind of new, what the regime thought was radically new industrial policy to boost domestic manufacturing. We've ended up during Modi's 10 years, we ended up manufacturing to GDP ratio
Has
falling
come down.
from 15.5% in 2014 to now I guess 13%, right? So would you say that it's been a failure in that sense?
No, you see, the point is that I had diagnosed that it Atmanirbhar Bharat, uh, it is almost a proxy for protectionism.
Okay,
Okay.
so you're saying it has degenerated into protectionism. Okay,
Uh,
yeah,
you build up tariff walls, etc., that kind of
yeah,
things, and
yeah.
some 3,500 tariff lines. Out of that, some 3,000 or 2,500 tariff lines are increased, etc. So basically,
It's more than 3,000 tariff lines where
uh,
tariffs have been increased. Yeah, yeah,
okay, around 3,000 it has been increased. So I diagnosed this as a emergence of protectionism. It was
okay.
also objected to by Panagaria and
Uh,
Jagdish Bhagawati, etc.
uh,
around that time. But slowly it turns out to be that.
I think it was against their advice, right? Panagaria
No,
had
yeah,
objected to it.
yeah. They are not okay with this high tariff
Yeah,
just to protect domestic
yeah,
manufacturers.
yeah,
They are not okay with that.
yeah,
Both Bhagawati and Panagaria.
yeah. So, so that was a mistake. You say protectionism was a mistake.
In the modern parlance, when Trump does it, we say that he is committing a mistake.
Yeah, I know.
When we do it, how can the different template apply to us?
So Satya, it's good. It's good you spoke about Trump. Now I'm coming to the present situation. So in a way, Modi government's industrial policy, I would say a key fundamental policy uh, uh, prescription, which was Atmanirbhar Bharat, based on, as you said, higher duties on over 3,000 tariff lines, which is 60% of nearly. Although we have 12,000 tariff lines, but effectively it's 5,000
Yeah,
are the
yeah.
are the mostly traded ones. So you can say 60% of the items nearly had much higher tariffs, uh, in view with a view to boosting domestic manufacturing for in the country. Now that was the industrial policy, right? Now so you would imagine, as an economist, you would imagine that a lot of investors would be still be responding to this industrial policy. But now suddenly we have a Trump who's holding a sledgehammer on and telling us to bring down all the tariffs down and substantially bring down the protectionist the
Mhm.
policy. So how will this pan out? Because for all these years you're telling you have an industrial policy based on protectionism and higher tariff, and suddenly will there be a policy reversal? I'm just wondering. I mean,
Um,
will there be an industrial policy reversal? Yeah.
no, it all depends on how much of appetite the government will have to go with their own line of thinking, or
Yeah.
how much they will like to converge with the American way of thinking.
Yeah.
Okay, so but the point is, um, on the face of it, uh, there will be some moderation in the tariff lines and that
Okay.
kind of thing. Okay, on the
Okay.
face of it.
Okay. So Satya, now, so they will, I agree with you. There will be some moderation, because that the Prime Minister already indicated. The way they, even before negotiations began, they started cutting tariffs on a number of items. Now, people are now just waiting to see how much more tariffs will be brought down in the course of the negotiation in the bilateral trade agreement, which is under negotiation. Uh, Now, the real question now, Satya, uh, is the government prepared? Has the government prepared the domestic industry for this? Why I'm asking you this question is, one of the issues that you raise in your book is that the Indian policy, the industrial policy and other policies in the last 10 years, or maybe even before that, but much more acutely in the last 10 years, have been much more pro-business than pro-market. So now, when you say pro-business, you take the top, say, 10, 15, 20 businesses in India, the big businesses, which mainly produce inputs like steel, man-made fiber, polyester yarn, aluminium, you name it. So all the big industrial houses in India make these items, and we've traditionally had higher tariffs. Steel recently got an extra 12% protection in terms of safeguard
Mhm.
duties. Now, in all these, if tariffs are brought down, it may be good for the steel consumers, for the larger universe of small medium producers that use steel and aluminium, etc., man-made fiber as inputs. Uh, but this will also hit some of these big businesses who are very close to the government, and they are very strongly entrenched in India's political economy as supporters of this of political party funding of political parties, etc. So there's a direct clash now between say Trump's uh, big business supporters and Modi's big business supporters. How do you that conflict playing out now?
Uh, First of all, India being pro business more than being pro market.
Yeah,
It has been there for a long time. Okay,
yeah.
long,
Mhm.
maybe might have happened without people realizing, or that kind of thing, but it is certainly not pro market, this thing. So naturally, the same thing is continuing even today. Okay,
Yeah,
it is
yeah,
pro business rather than pro market. It may not be the 10 12 that you are talking about. It may be, it may be top 500, or
yeah,
maybe top 1000, etc.
yeah.
But
Mhm.
it is a structural problem. As long
Yeah.
as you are pro business rather than pro market,
Mhm.
then obviously your priorities and your support will move in one particular direction.
True.
Okay, particularly if you are pro market, then your support will move in another direction. So that is
Correct.
the thing. And but this is actually a term used by I think Arvind Subramaniam,
Yeah, yeah.
and Danny Rodriguez together.
Yeah,
They,
yeah, yeah.
in research work, they use this particular, and
Yeah,
they were.
there's another term for it which Ashutosh Varshne used it when he was participating in your book discussion, where he called them national champions. So even Subramaniam calls the Indian big businesses that get special support from the regime as national champions. So that's why I'm saying. So Trump also has his national champions, right? When
I
Trump,
think the
yeah,
national champion theory or
yeah,
national champion, espousing the cause of national champion, I think you are probably battling the 21st century war with the ammunition of 1960 or 1970. This kind of thing happened in Korea and other places,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
in a very limited fashion, in terms of making credit available, in terms of making certain amount of subsidy for a very limited period of time,
yeah, yeah.
okay, to capture the world market. But what really happened is that, like, the national champions did emerge, but the 5 or 6 industrial line which the government had focused on, none of them, Korea is in the forefront now. Okay.
Yeah.
Like shipbuilding. I think Asutosh had pointed it out in that discussion also.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, Shipbuilding. Do you consider Korea as a shipbuilding nation? Or
Yeah, yeah.
similarly, so these kind of things have got attributes which can be supported for a limited period of time,
Yeah,
and when Korea was an emerging country,
yeah, yeah.
okay,
You're
but when
right. Subsequently, Korea moved on. Korea
all right,
created world-class consumer brands like Samsung, etc.
that
So,
correct,
for a limited period, Korea did go through that phase, and then they kind of reinvented themselves. Yeah, true.
right,
Yeah.
yeah.
But I'm saying, Satya, in today's context,
Hmm.
I was reading Joseph Stiglitz his comment recently, where he argues that capitalism, even in America today, has reached a point. Uh, has capitalism itself has reached a stage where it is being driven uh, uh, by national champion cronies. I mean, for want of a better word. So
Yes.
the role of cronies
Hmm.
um, has become almost institutionalized in the new capitalist evolution,
Hmm.
and which was visible uh, the most during Trump's inauguration. I have not has anybody seen in the last say 50, 70, 80 years, American president during his victory speech has all the top capitalists standing behind him, and he's unhesitantly naming one person and saying he's the best guy. He's the guy who will take us to the moon. He, of course, literally he mentioned Elon Musk.
Hmm.
Now, this I've never seen before. So in a sense, what Joseph Stiglitz says has some meaning. They are some big businesses now. Uh, Modern capitalism is dependent on big businesses for its further kind of perpetuation. Is that the
Uh,
case?
uh, my reading of the matter is slightly different, in the sense, like, too much of good is the beginning of the downside, beginning of
Yeah.
the downslide.
Mhm.
So I think both of us have read Ruchi Sharma's book, etc.,
Mhm.
on what went wrong with capitalism.
Yeah.
And of course, he's focusing on the different issues, but at the same time, the capitalism is in crisis.
Yeah. Yeah. True.
Okay. So naturally, to take the features of the capitalism today from the US and say that this is the shape of things to come in future, we may be very premature in forecasting.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
So it is also churning. It will have to churn. I was surprised that U.S. society, which is a very different society, by the age of 16, a boy declares that he is free. He
Mhm.
will work part time and study or do this thing. Now people, young men and women are staying with their parents right up to the age of 28, 29.
Yeah.
They can't afford it. Okay.
So
They
you're
can't.
so basically, Satya, I mean, my final this thing. I'll close with this. You're suggesting that what's happening in the U.S. Capitalism may be in some kind of a crisis there, but things are different in the emerging markets like India, China, etc. So you're saying that India still has a chance to move its policy from being pro business to pro market and still produce some reasonable growth for the next say 10, 15, 20 years. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely, yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And US by and large,
Hmm.
let's say right after the Second World War, was
Hmm.
pro market rather than the pro business as
Yeah.
much.
So
Okay.
that's what it. So
So
you would.
now they're moving towards that. We need
Yeah.
not take it as as something cast in stone and
Yeah.
necessarily a stage through which we'll have to go through. Because if
Okay.
you look at it, the demand side problem, etc.,
Exactly.
and the employment
Yeah,
problems,
got it. Got it. So
employment
basically,
problem.
yeah. So you would advise the this government, Modi government, to quickly change strategy and move as soon as possible to being pro market rather than uh,
I'm not.
pro business.
Who am I to advise them? Because I'm not in official position. So, okay,
No, no.
but at the same time,
I'm asking you to advise.
no, no. My understanding is that you will. It is better that we move in that direction.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
My
Thank.
understanding is.
Okay. Thank you very much, Satya, for talking to us and for giving us your book, Unpolitically Correct, which I recommend uh, uh, that our audiences should read. Yeah. Thank you very much.